Namaste and peace, everybody. Good morning. Tom, hey, Tom, good to see you yesterday in the post office. I'm glad you're here today. Hi, Logan. Hey, Brother Ed. I'd like to introduce my friend Tom. Tom's an old friend of mine, and we've known each other a long time. He lives in Booth Bay Harbor, where I live. Say howdy to Tom. He's another mystic, too. Hey, Quiet Energy. Brother Ed, Logan, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. And I'm not sure why my teleprompter is not wanting to connect this morning, but we're going to give it one more try here and see what happens. And there we go. Hey, peace and love, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm Peter Panagore, and I'm a near-death experiencer ×2. And this is a rebranded Not Church. I'm trying new names out, seeing what you think of it or them. I'm thinking of Mysticism Connection. Mysticism Connection. One light, one love, inside, worldwide. And as Candyman said today, all right, so this is definitely giving me trouble. As Candyman said today, already in the chat, he took his whole life to realize that what he was seeking was inside himself. So look inside. And today, uncover yourself, sunshine. That's the name of today's talk. Masking or self-censoring, it's ordinary among mystics. When Tom and I were talking yesterday in the post office, people were walking by. People we knew were walking by. And I don't normally talk the way we did yesterday in the post office, very straightforward about, and even in some whispers, about mystical life in the ordinary world. I usually self-censor. And last week we talked about self-censoring and masking. I self-censor most of the time when I'm out in public. I quiet the light down out of my mouth. I don't quiet it down out of my heart, but I definitely quiet it down out of my mouth and don't talk about it because people give you those weird looks. So everywhere I go, unless I feel safe, and the reason why I was able to talk yesterday in the post office with my friend Dom is because, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but you know me. So um, the reason why I felt comfortable talking in public yesterday is because of Tom, because of the phase lock connection that exists between people who have the radiant divine inside themselves. Otherwise, I keep my mouth shut. I'm not an evangelist, and I don't present arguments or reasons or defend mysticism. I don't defend our energetic experience because there's no point in that, because if they can't feel it, they can't feel it. I can't do anything about that. But even without words, the light leaks out on its own. It just does. And in my NDE, I was given a lit lamp for my lifetime, but I hid it in a closet for the longest time. Yeah, it leaked out the keyhole and under the door, but I kept that closet door closed. But I went in that closet. I was in that closet with that light, and I was doing exactly what Jesus said: is to go and you pray, go in your closet, go by yourself, go into yourself, go find it inside yourself. So I was in the closet with the lamp, but I wasn't talking about it in public. But the light was leaking out, as it leaks out of all of us wherever we go, without this push of intention driven by the egoic mind. So then the time came to open the door, and that's why I'm talking to you today. I finally decided to open the door, and the post office in our little town is right across the street from the church I used to serve, where Tom was a member. And in the middle of our conversation, I started talking about the Gospel of Thomas and some of the prana and the Shakti and the things we talk about here. And I said to him, I never talk about that stuff in church. I never, in the time that I was in that church as the minister, ever talked about any of this stuff because I was afraid I was going to get fired. And Tom, you nodded your head in agreement. Things that could not be said, things that I can say here. So today we're going to touch on the similarities between Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas in saying 33 and Matthew 5:14-16, and this fellow by the name of Baal Shem Tov. Shem Tov, famous, famous man in the Jewish world, the Jewish mystic and founder of Hasidic Judaism. And then I'm going to give you something practical about your mystical life. But first, I'm going to make sure I said hi to everybody over here. Wanda and Lynn, Vicky, I know. I don't feel like I can defend it either, or even need to. Vicky says that's how I feel. I don't defend because they, if they can't feel it, they can't feel it. That's I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I didn't make up the rules. Green Goddess, good morning. So many are more open, if not feeling the light themselves now, and this is true. This is true. Green Goddess is right on spot. Hey, Gigi, right? Hey, hi Beth out there in the West Coast. Robert, hi. I speak the worlds in this physical. Your words speak truth about where we live in this physical world. Being able to speak of the divine world or of something few others see takes courage. Thank you, Robert. It is daring to talk about mysticism in public. Thank you. Shouting this off a rooftop has its effects. Thank you, brother. All right. So, but first, I have to nerd out a little bit before I talk about Thomas. Not my friend Tom, but the Gospel of Thomas. I have to nerd out briefly here so that you're going to understand what I'm going to say in a few minutes. And we've talked about this before, but it's been a few months. The oxyrhynchus, they are papyri, which are fragments of they're a collection of fragments of the Gospel of Thomas that were discovered in an ancient papyri dump, basically a dump of library books. If you could imagine, scrolls piled up by the apparently thousands in this big dump in Egypt. The Gospel of Thomas. The Oxyrhynchus portions of the Gospel of Thomas were dug up around the beginning of the 20th century in Egypt, and we're going to bring in some of those fragments, which are the Gospel of Thomas, but they are a little different from the complete Gospel of Thomas that we have in our hands. They add information to us. And then there's this other book. And this book is brand new to me, and I had no idea this thing even existed until pretty recently. It's called the Peshitta, and it's an ancient Christian Bible few beyond Syria have ever heard of. And I grew up in the Orthodox Church, the Catholic and the Orthodox Church, and you would think that the Orthodox Church would know something about this, but they want to use the Greek. I grew up in the Greek Orthodox Church. They use the Greek, Koine Greek. But the Peshitta is this ancient text, this ancient Bible version dating back from the 2nd century, and it was written in Syriac. Now, Syriac is an Eastern Aramaic dialect. Jesus spoke Aramaic. It would be like living in London and maybe then going to okay, a dialect. I'm going to think of it. It's a dialect. I'm not going to make up something that I can't follow through on that. To give you an example of a dialect, I don't have one at my fingertips. But the Syriac is Eastern Aramaic, and it is a dialect of what Jesus spoke. It's a sister language of the Aramaic of Galilee, so it's the closest, the Peshitta is the closest to the original language of Jesus that exists. And, I wish I had known about this book long ago. And I'm going to use the Oxyrhynchus and the Peshitta a little bit today to unpack Thomas and Matthew. So that's the end of my nerding. So hi, Nadine. Hey, Helen, sorry. But the guys like Helena, Helen, hi. Um, The banned book dump of its day. Yeah, maybe it's the banned book dump of its day. I don't know. That's could be. So let's gather ourselves together and give 3 ohms and kind of bring ourselves into the presence of each other, because the part of the whole thing that this mystic connection morning is about is to utilize the energy within us and help create this phase lock among us so that we can be in the divine presence together. And chanting Om is one way to help us do that. And then we'll take a few belly breaths together, meditation breaths using your chant if you want to, but listen to your breathing, I would suggest, and feeling your breath come past your larynx and into your belly, and feel it and listen when we do those few breaths. Okay, so here we go. This is Sangha. This is the collection of the meditators. All right, spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is meant to be shared. So 3 Om chantings. Three breaths. Each time we drop into this center of peace inside ourselves, it continues to live in us as time goes on. It doesn't stop living in us, it continues to live in us. And even so, even though my teleprompter here is totally messing up on me, I think what I'm going to do is abandon the teleprompter altogether here. So pop that off. Pop that off. There it is right there. And I'm just going to go with the little tiny screen right in front of me. Let's see. One more sec, everybody. And I do prepare these things, and I prepare them so that I know what I'm doing, which apparently I'm just trying to reverse it here. Remote control, guide, vertical. Okay, so it's going to give me trouble today. I'm switching glasses here, everybody. You guys are fabulous. All right, here we go. All right, so I nerded out, and here we go. Okay, this is called Uncover Yourself, Sunshine. So I want to talk a little bit more about self-censoring. This Matthew 5:14, 5:14 to 16, it's a translation. I'm going to give you a translation that I created. Okay. This is my translation, heard through the ear of my NDE and the Aramaic Peshitta. Matthew 5:14 to 16, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Neither do humans light a bulb. Neither do humans light a bulb and put it under a bucket, but string it up high, giving light to all. Let your celestial, original, and everlasting self shine for human beings. Be light, ripe and present in the moment so that the perishable experience the energy of heaven. Neither do humans light a bulb and put it under a bucket, but they string it up high, giving light to all. Let your celestial, original, and everlasting light shine for human beings. Be light and present in the moment so that the perishable may experience the heavenly energy. What he's saying is that if you're present to the divine in your time when you're with people, that's when the divine energy radiates from you. When you're in the moment with the people you're with, inside the peace inside yourself, then that light shines out through you into the world, out through me, out through us. That's just the way it works. And the more we practice together in our interior, the more that's going to come out in our exterior. And so, even though we mask, we don't really need to say anything about it. We can just be inside of it. So, this Matthew quote, I encourage you to take a look at it on your own down the road because it's a little different than what you um, know from your childhood or from recently sitting in a parish. I'm going to read it one more time. Neither do human beings light a bulb and put it under a bucket, but string it up on high, giving light to all. Let your celestial, original, and everlasting light shine for human beings. Be light, ripe and present at the moment. So at the moment, be ripe and present, so that the perishable, the brokenness of the world, the temporality of the world, may experience the heavenly energy, this permanent part of yourself. And I know you've felt this. This is what Jesus was doing. And it's why close associates and crowds followed him. He was doing this thing he's telling us to do. He radiated the light itself. And we hear a little more about this in John, where he talks about himself being one with the divine. And we can do this just as he did. And like I said, many of you have felt this for yourselves, or maybe you've intuited this because something's tickling your toe of your soul. You've felt something beyond what you've been taught. Now, in the Gospel of Thomas 33, with the Onchyrhynchus as assistant, with the assistance of the Oxyrhynchus, Jesus said, "Whatever you hear with one of your ears," singular, whatever you hear with one of your ears, proclaim from the rooftops. Indeed, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a bucket or shuts it in a closet. Rather, we mount it on the ceiling so that each who enters and leaves might see its light. Those who enter and leave, meaning those seekers and seers who come through your life for a time, perhaps to return again and stay or not. The light hung from the ceiling is for everyone. And that's what he's calling us to do. And of course, it's not what I did. It's what I'm doing now, though. So let me ask you this. Which one of your ears hears? Which one of your ears hears? I mean, I have a little, this ear doesn't hear as well as this ear, but he's using the singular. Listen, when I listen to the world, I usually listen with two ears. But when I listen with my heart, I listen with the singular ear, the ear of my heart. I listen with my intuition. And we can cultivate this hearing, this love in the heart chakra. And in our breath and in our practice with focusing our minds and quieting our thoughts to listen with the ear of the heart. The ear of the heart hears the divine presence that is unspoken, whispers beyond our human brain's understanding, but not beyond our experience of the presence. When we understand Jesus' message about our true natures, about our original selves, our true nature manifests in us in the world. It's not an intellectual assent. It's not a belief system. It's an experience. And when this manifests inside ourselves, even in a tiniest amount, it also manifests in our world around us. That's the way it works. And to understand the message is not to quote chapter and verse. It's not to know the Bible by heart. It's not to know everything there is about the translations, which obviously I don't because I'm still learning things. It's not about having the intellect to be able to understand or read any other mystical journals in the history of the world. It is to instead to lose yourself, to surrender yourself, to find yourself. Then, once you find yourself, you must continue on the journey. And there's lots of ways to continue on the journey. But once you find yourself, it's hard to forget who you are. And the journey continues with every single breath you take. And fortunately for us, we don't have to go it alone anymore. I went alone on my journey for decades. I mean, substantially, the journey is your own because it's interior of you. And so we all go on our journey by ourselves. But we don't have to go alone anymore because we have Mystic Tea Salon. We have our gathering that meets at the top of the hour after this live broadcast, this streaming. It's for where people like us can speak outside of our closets and share our experiences with humility, compassion, and kindness. Because those are the results of mystical experience. The deeper one goes into oneself, the more one finds compassion, kindness, truth, humility, understanding, hope, strength. It's a journey that continues after you find. Seek and find and continue on. And the light leaks out. And the stronger the wattage, the more the light leaks. So the proclamation of light in Thomas, he says, shout it from the rooftops. And I am talking on this streaming service, and this is sort of a rooftop, but I'm not sure that that's exactly what Thomas was meaning. I think what he really was meaning was for the ordinary people who experience the extraordinary presence of the divine in their lives to live it in the world. The rooftop is your daily life. And the shouting isn't the voice. The shouting is the presence of the light itself and your reactions to the people in the world around you as you grow in this peace inside yourself. As this peace grows inside yourself by surrendering to it, it's not an intellectual assent, it's an elimination of self to the attachment to oneself. And as this grows inside yourself, it comes out naturally. It comes out in behavior and in reaction to other people. It comes out in humility. It's this shining that lives inside us that comes into the world around us through our response to the world. As the world touches us, we respond to it, and we could give back envy for envy or jealousy for jealousy or hate for hate. Or we can bring that inside ourselves, transmute it, and send out love and peace because we have love and peace living inside us. That's a little Tong Glen. You bring the vitriol from the world and you transmute it through the lens of yourself. And by being in the presence itself, you get to then shout it from the rooftop of your own being in the presence of people around you. And this isn't theoretical to me. Like I didn't just read this in a book somewhere. I live this. I live this because the process that Yogananda talked about with Kriya Yoga and Pantajali talked about in the Yoga Sutras, these tools of practice work independent of me. They work because they work, not because of me. Centering into silence eliminates the self and allows you to surrender to the will of the divine. And practicing these kriyas create the Shakti, the energy. inside yourself. It's the Holy Spirit in Christian language. The presence of the Holy Spirit is a living thing, the paraclete, as it is in the Koine Greek, sometimes translated as the comforter. And I can tell you, it is comforting. It's comforting to know the connection to the divine is so strong that it leaks into the world. It's comforting to know that the world, even though it wounds me, cannot touch my original self, cannot harm my soul. I live in this space. I know many of you do too. And you don't have to have a near-death experience. You just need to trust your intuition, to go inside and find what you already are. Many of us here have had mystical experiences that aren't NDEs of all different sorts. Cultivate that space inside yourself. And then it's going to shine out through our actions in our eyes. People will feel it in the aura that surrounds our body. So this aura that surrounds our body, that's us. It's much more like my body is inside of my energetic, subtle body than it is I inhabit my body. And I know I talk about it's as I inhabit my body. I know that I talk about it that way. I know that I talk about that I'm in this machine, this biological machine that I inhabit. But it's also that this is inside of me, that my energetic self, my soul, my consciousness, my aura is me. And the more one cultivates this inside oneself, the brighter you shine in the world. And it's not your light. It is, in a sense, your light. But ultimately, it's the infinite light. It's the infinite light, which can't be grasped or held, but only be inside of. And the more light we share, the greater this share becomes. The more light that radiates from us, the more capacity we have inside us. The more you give it away, the more you gather. It's paradoxical. It's like I had a wheelbarrow full of bricks and I go off and I dump the wheelbarrow full of bricks and I go back for another load, only for some crazy reason, by the time I get back for the other load, my wheelbarrow is already full of bricks, kind of like duplicates of the previous bricks, copies of the previous bricks. The more I give away, the more I have. Or maybe a better metaphor for that is that by the time I get back to the brick pile, they've recopied themselves and the pile never gets smaller. It just continues to get bigger. And so the more bricks I give away, the more bricks I have. That's a better metaphor. The more bricks I have in my brickyard. I hope that works for you. I made that up on the spot. This is a paradox of love with a capital L, of the infinite eternal. Jesus talked about this, and it is true in my own life. The more I give away, the more I have. And it comes, this transformation, it comes with a new view of you from the inside out into the world in which you live, your body and your physical environment. The light manifests itself, manifests themselves of its own accord. The more we get out of the way, the more present it is here. Our beloved, themselves, in everything, everywhere, even in our darkest moments and times, even in our worries, even in our anxieties, even when I feel upset. I did an interview the other night and somebody said that people who are enlightened, people who have the divine dwelling in them don't get angry. I don't know. Maybe there are people like that. But sometimes emotions come upon me. I feel sadness or anger, sometimes even a twinge of, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had? When I dwell on those, they grow. When I let them go, they recede and disappear. I let them go, not necessarily by working on them in therapy, which I have done lots of years of therapy. I let them go by letting go of myself, by the abandonment of my false self. I get underneath them. I go back to the original self. So, even in my darkest times, the light is still present to me. Even when I worry about tomorrow, because, whatever, no, I'm not worried about tomorrow, okay? But even if I were worried about tomorrow for something to happen, maybe I was having to go to the doctor and, you know, get a tooth drilled or something. Even then, because the light is so strong, even then I have peace, even in that little bit of anxiety. The goodness with a capital G, this goodness that accumulates inside us, it brings light and generosity, kindness, beauty, joy, hope, caring, courage, and community into the world. And it's not a community of ideas, it's a community of the divine presence of the light itself, filtered through every one of us in individual ways, but the light itself is the same. And the more we allow this to be inside us, the better our lives become. So last week we talked about masking and self-censoring. You don't need to unmask your words. One can continue to not talk about this in public, even to your friends, because most might not want to hear it. But you can still shine the light into the world. It's like St. Francis of Assisi said. I love this quote. I preach the gospel at all times. Sometimes I use words. Talking about it doesn't change a person's reality because you're not going to convince them of it. There's no way that any mounting up of words is going to rationally talk somebody into this because it is irrational. But one embodies it, then one lives it, and then it shines on its own. Just unmask your heart. That's it. Just unmask your heart and let this light shine in the world of its own accord. Yesterday I popped up this thing on Facebook on my professional page, my MDiv page, and it was from the Marvel Comics with Doctor Strange. And he's up in the mountains, and maybe you've seen this movie. I'm a fan of Marvel Comics. I've been a fan of Marvel since I was a kid. So Doctor Strange, he's in the monastery, and I think he's in Tibet, and he's having a hard time making the magic circle with the ring on his hands to step through to transport himself anywhere in the world. And the master of the monastery, she takes him off to the top of the Himalayas and leaves him there so that it forces him to surrender himself. It forced him to get out of the way and submit to the river of the divine crystal water. And he does this. He does this not intellectually. He does this sort of, in desperation. And that's where the crack comes in. When you are broken as a person, aim the heart at the light, whether it's an anxiety or it's nervousness or it's jealousy or it's anger, turn back into surrender oneself. And you'll feel those things dissipate, at least for the time that you're inside. So Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov is a title like guru or swami. It means master of the good name. The name that can't be said. If you remember, months ago, we talked about the name that can't be said. He also spoke of letting one's inner light shine, teaching that each person has a spark of the divine light within them. And how did he know this? He saw it for himself. How do I know that? Because if you really truly know it, you have seen it. He was teaching that every human being has the spark of divine light inside themselves, and that it is up to us to nurture and cultivate that spark so that it can shine brightly. He said, here's what I saw. What he said is what I saw in my first near-death experience. I saw that light inside of every human being on earth, 7 billion people, now 8. Same thing that Jesus was talking about. Even if you can't see it inside yourself, it's still there. Even if you can't see it in other people, it is still there. There is nothing that exists that is not this spark of life, especially living, breathing animals and plants and insects. If you learn to see it in yourself, then you will see it in others more clearly. And I see it in me, and I see it in you, and I see it in everyone I meet. And seeing this causes me to breathe into the spark inside myself. The more I breathe into the spark inside myself, blowing on the campfire of my soul, the brighter the coals become. I use my breath to cultivate this space. And in cultivating this inner space, it shares itself with the world. My life becomes the rooftop. Not because I'm out there proclaiming what you should believe about this and that and the other thing. And if you don't believe this thing, then you're going to go to hell. None of that stuff. The preaching, the proclaiming is kindness, love, compassion, hope, truth, caring, courage, living in the world with these things, not trying to convince anybody of anything. Besides the fact that everybody's going to find out the moment that they die anyway. So it doesn't really, really, really matter all that much. And life is so much shorter than we perceive while we're inside of time space. You can do this in your life and never say a word. Take the bucket off, maybe, but leave maybe the mask on sometimes. Maybe the bucket is what I was doing when I was damping down my light altogether while I was cultivating it inside my closet. And I opened my closet door. I took the bucket off, but I still wear the mask sometimes. But because it's like those Bollywood movies, I don't know if you see the Bollywood movies with the great hero, he's wearing this black mask, or Batman wearing this mask. They're still doing goodness in the world, but they are masked. You don't need to talk about it all the time, even if you want to. And I do want to. I have very little patience to talk about anything else, about the mundane. It, you know, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. So self-censor as you need to with those who don't have ears to hear. If you have the ear to hear, the single ear to hear, practice listening. And if they don't have ears to hear, why talk about it? It's not their fault. And it's not your job. It's not my job to try to convince anybody of anything. I'm not a biblical apologist. There's a term, biblical apologist. And a biblical apologist is somebody who defends the faith against heresy. I'm not here to defend mysticism. I'm not an apologist. I'm not an evangelist. I'm a mystical seeker. I keep going inward and letting the light shine on its own. And everybody's going to see it for themselves soon enough, so I don't have to convince anybody of anything. We come here, I came here to share this glory in Christian language, this presence, this radiance, this energy, this frequency, this Shakti, this paraclete, to be in it and to share it without words, even though I'm talking about it right now. So I am paradox myself. But to become a channel of light and let it teach you humanity, teach your humanity, humility, compassion, and kindness. Carve away your frail, human, false self. It's not a bad thing. Got to have an ego, got to live in the world. But attachment to that thing, giving it the strength that it doesn't deserve, that's where the problem lies. Be the shining bulb. Contribute to your soul light within the world, inside yourself, as quietly, as loudly as you want. Contribute that to the outside. Stoke your fire. Power your inner light bulb, which is yourself. This fire inside yourself that feels different from yourself is you. That is you. I seek it with Kriya and stillness. You have your own paths and your own ways of doing that. Stillness is what all the teachers taught, the great teachers, Confucius, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, others, many others. All you have to do is seek it. Go inside your closet. Work it in there and open your closet door and let the light out. This light, it's the only chance we have to lead humanity into the light itself. The only way to lead humanity into light itself is the light itself. See what I mean? The more you become a channel of the light itself, the more you'll help those who are already awakening more and more. And the more they awaken, the more light they channel in, the more light there is for all of us to share. My goal isn't to manifest anything in the world. I mean, that's what Dr. Strange was trying to do. He's trying to take the will of the river of the divine and then bend it to his own. That's what that's what they do in that Marvel comic. I'm not trying to bend it to my own will. I'm trying to get out of the way so that it can be itself in the world through me. As a Christian might say, the Christian consciousness, the Christ consciousness in the world. Thank you, Susie, for the super chat. Thanks for liking the video too and subscribing. Tell your friends. Thanks for being here, everybody. This is a global endeavor. Each of us sits at the end of our own private fiber optic cable connected directly to the source. You're already connected directly to the source. So all you need to do, sunshine, is to uncover yourself and join the party. There are tens of millions of near-death experiencers and other types of mystics living in the world today. And the more of us that channel the light and hang our bulbs on high, the more potent the light becomes in our hearts and the lives around us. Even if people don't want to hear about the mysterious mystery of the divine energy, it still will touch them through you. Not words, actions. The light shines on its own when we get out of the way. Indra's net of light is woven through every human heart. So, thank you all for being here and spending time with me this morning. Thanks for your Patreon and PayPal support or by mail. I appreciate that. It makes it possible for me to be here, helping to find and form a community of mystics around the world. Every little bit helps. Thank you. Visit peterpanagore.love. Pastoral counseling, spiritual direction, intuitive understanding, 40 years of professional practice. I'm available to speak with you, peterpanagore.love. Thanks for the super chat today, Susie. And if you've ever had a mystical experience and feel alone, like no one understands you, come lurk at Mystic Tea, and the link is below. Or did I put it in? Holy Toledo, I didn't. I got to put that in today. You might find your people. So I'm going to leave a little early today so that I can drop it in the description of this video. I don't know if Toledo is actually a holy place. It might be. But if you go to Mystic Tea Salon, you will find other people like yourselves. All right, so I'm going to spend a moment or two here in the chat, and then I'm going to leave a couple minutes early so that I can drop that link where it should be. Okie dokie. Put on my other glasses. 50,000 pairs of glasses. You see my glasses stack over here. I could this big stack of glasses, including these red ones. I got to clean them though because I can't see without them. Tremendous. Thank you, Candyman. I never know when I make these videos, when I write these things. I just write. I think, I research, I write. Thank you, Candyman. Appreciate that tremendous message. Thank you for sharing this meaningful message. Thanks, Quiet Energy. I really need both, says Susan. What are the both that you need? Tom, thanks for laughing, brother. Robert, seek always and know, be humble in one's words is key. It is to be humble in one's words is key. This is totally true. And you can become humble in your words when you become humble in your heart. Not you personally, Robert, everybody. I didn't mean to use that word you. Nadine, be itself in the world through me. This is the way that the divine energy comes in the world. It can't come into the world any other way. I mean, it's no, all right, okay. It is inside of everything there is. There's nothing that exists outside it, even my glasses. No divine energy, no glasses. Everything is inside of it. But to channel it into the human social experience, that's our job. That's the task. And it's already inside you. You've already got it. It's like I quoted to not Robert, but Candyman, Glinda, what Glinda said to Dorothy. I'm going to skim back up and see if I can see that. What Glinda said to Dorothy, you always had the power with you. You always had the power with you, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. You always have the power with you, my dears. You just have to learn it for yourself. That's all. I like about the sunshine. Yeah, you got the sunshine inside you there, Betty Lou. Words and actions. Oh, yes, the passcode is humility. Thank you. That's for Mystic Tea Salon. Be yourself in the world through me. All right, I'm going to skim back up. I don't know if there's other stuff I got to pay attention to here in the chat, but I'm going to take a look. I don't think the canonical Gospels or Thomas have Jesus talking about divine music, but sharing divinity as heavenly sound as well as the heavenly light feels right to me. Humming the true tune, yes, vineyard worker. Jesus might not talk about it, but that whole choir of angels thing, for sure, talking about it. There's lots of ways to be in the presence of the divine. I use Kriya. I use silence. People use music. I use nature. Actually, nature, I'm a nature mystic more than anything else. That's why I live where I live. I live on the edge of the wilderness. And I live there because when I step out my door, nature prays in me. And so I use the sound of birds singing. I use the river sounding or the ocean crashing. People use lots of different things. Music is either vocalized or listening, as you wish. I believe that for me, it's not my job to proclaim. It's my job to be there for someone when they ask, speak from my heart, offer my experience, be there for them, says Tom. For sure. Let's see. As we each align and attune with this wisdom and truth, the world we experience is transformed. That's the key. Brother Ed's right. The more you bring this inside yourself, the more you change. The more you change, the more your world changes. Our entire world is in our heads. I mean, there's a physical world, right? There is a physical world, but our understanding of it is entirely in our heads. And if we want to change the world, we change our minds. That's how that happens. All right, I'm going to skim down. Hey, Cloudscape. Hi, Peter. Want to say that I find your streams to be comforting and intellectually stimulating, both of which seem to be missing in a lot of our modern churches. You do a great thing. Thank you. Thank you, Cloudscape, for saying so, because I know that I started this channel for a bunch of reasons. Well, a few reasons. It's a funnel to Mystic Tea Salon to connect with other mystics. And Mystic Tea Salon is a funnel to our Tuesday Kriya group where I'm learning to teach what I've been practicing for 40 years. That's under, like number one on my outline list of my channel. Number two on it is I have an expertise. My expertise is in what's theologians call exegesis, which we used to kid it in divinity school. That was extra Jesus. But exegesis is the intellectual examination, analytical, historical, critical examination of biblical texts. And I'm taking those tools and I'm applying them to all these other texts. Thomas, Mary, sometimes Philip, Upanishads. But thank you for saying so, Cloudscape, because I didn't know what else to do. I started this channel because I'm only really good at one thing. That's not really true, but I'm only capable of producing unending products on spirituality, unending video. I could run this channel for a 100 years and never run out of material because of the material that's available in the world. And I want to be able to take that material that's available in the world and apply my intellect to open up the doors that may have been shut and locked by church upbringing in particular, and open minds and open hearts. So there's this book called Open Heart, Open Mind, Open Mind, Open Heart. I can't remember the way the title goes, but it doesn't really matter, because if you open your mind, you open your heart. If you open your heart, you open your mind in the spiritual world. So thank you, Cloudscape. I appreciate that more than I can say, because if I have an anxiety about anything, it's this. Is what I'm doing on my channel, does it have value for people? Is it helping people? I know it's such a niche, but is it helping? That's really what I don't know all the time. And so thank you, Cloudscape, for saying so. Vineyard Worker, thank you, Peter. Brick by Brick, thank you for picking up that metaphor. Aspired to give it all away, trusting that brick by brick more light shines. The process of non-attachment is the removal of bricks from our wall, brick by brick by brick. We're pulling out breath by breath by breath, pulling out the bricks that wall us in. And this wall, okay, so I'm going to use these two metaphors. There's a wall inside of ourselves, and that shields the temple inside your heart. And we remove brick by brick by brick, breath by breath by breath, as we step aside from our egoic selves, as we quiet down our thoughts, because thoughts create what we are. And it also simultaneously, as we're removing brick by brick by brick inside ourselves, it removes them in the outside world too. So the more bricks we remove from our interior world, the smaller our wall gets in the outside world. All right, my friends, I should get going. Thanks, Mary, for loving this. I'll see you in about 5 minutes in Mystic Tea Salon, and I'm going to dash to put that link into the description right now. So thank you all for being here. Peace and love. See you in a few minutes. Come and join us if you've not been before. Lurk if you want to. It's very egalitarian. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you. Peter Panagore.love.